Going cashless is that mantra on Nigerian seas in recent years as the country's fintech subsector jumps with more digital platforms of e-commerce, while the central bank pushes vigorously for increased financial inclusion and so on. Now, the issue of a cashless economy has also been thrown up in the ongoing New Naira Notes program of the financial regulator. But what are the facts, the figures, and the realities of a cashless society in a developing economy such as Nigeria? My guest on this is Taiwo Oyedele. He is a fiscal policy partner and Africa tax leader at PwC here in Lagos. A warm welcome to the show tonight. Great to have you. I enjoyed some of your tweets yesterday, a series of them as far as the cashless was concerned. So we decided to get you into the studio to unwrap this a little bit further. So we got a little time. Let's talk about this. What does a cashless economy or cashless society really mean in practice? I went through one or two dictionaries online and I found a few things. But talk to me, Taiwo.
Yeah, thank you very much, Boston. Yes, so I think in the literal sense, there's really no cashless economy, because what that means is we are looking for an economy where there's no cash. So there's no such economy, and I'm not sure that will be the case anytime soon. But what it means in terms of practical terms is an economy where you use less and less of cash. So it is cashless, less of cash in a society. In other words, you want an economy where the exchange of transactions, you are buying goods, you are paying for services, including when you are buying a significant asset, you use electronic means of payment, which could be your bank transfer. It could be by mobile phone if you can, maybe it's USSD. It can be through POS. It can be any form of payment other than physical currency, which is banknotes and coins. So the more of this you can do in an economy, the more cashless that economy is. If you look around the world, you find that cashless economy drive is influenced significantly by the level of financial inclusion you have in society. So countries that are leading the way around the world include, the likes of Denmark at about 99.9%. Almost every adult in Denmark is included. Finland, Norway. Those countries are really very high before you get to the level of the UK, the US. When you come to Africa, you see the countries that are leading include South Africa. Kenya is about 84%. Nigeria just got to about 64% recently. So it's a journey. We're making some progress, but we're not quite yet there.
Okay, so let's get into real cash. Nigerians love their cash, in a manner of speaking. So talk to me about when the central bank says currency in circulation versus currency out of the banking system in an economy such as Nigeria, which is developing. Talk to me. What's the difference, if there is any?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. So, I'll try not to sound technical because we need to carry everybody along. So the amount of cash, that's banknotes, that's Naira, we're not spending kobo, otherwise I'll say Naira and kobo. The amount of Naira that the central bank has printed that is outside of the vault of the central bank is what we call currency in circulation. So in other words, the money you have in your pocket, the money I have with me, and also the money you have within the banking system. So all of that within the economy, excluding what is in the vault of the central bank, is what we call currency in circulation. So the central bank said, as at the end of last year, December 2022, that number was about 3 trillion Naira. Now, how does that compare to currency outside of the banking system? Now, you remember I said the currency in circulation includes the money with the bank. Now, if you exclude the money with the bank and you only limit it to the money with you and I on the street for transaction in the marketplace with the vulcanizer, that is what we call currency outside of the banking system. So the central bank said we had about 500 to 700 billion Naira within the banking system, which means around 2.7 trillion or 2.5, depending on the date you're looking at the data, of the currency in circulation in Nigeria is outside of the banking system. Now, having said that, I have to tell you that I'm always very surprised when the central bank says, the money in circulation is outside of the banking system. And I say to myself, you don't print bank notes so that they can be within the banking system. It will be unnecessary to do so. The reason why you actually print your currency is so that they can circulate within the economy for economic transaction. From time to time, those currencies will visit the bank as you deposit in the bank, and then the bank will also pay it out. But from time to time, you need to have significant amounts of your currency outside of the banking system.
So that's exactly where this conversation really is going, Taiwo. How does the volume of cash out of the banking vaults, as it were, not the central bank, the bank vaults, at any point in time, how does that impact a country's economy? Because the reason why currencies are printed is for the country to be productive, to use it. So if you look at Nigeria, which is a developing economy with a very weak productive base, how does the currency outside the banking system, therefore, give central banks sleepless night?
So if you think about it, we have money supply, which is the entire money in the economy, right? So money supply, according to the central bank, as at the end of December 2022, was 52 trillion naira. So this money supply includes the cash you have with you, and then the money you have with your bank, deposit accounts, savings accounts, including money market instruments. So that entire money supply is 52 trillion, out of which about 3 trillion is in currency, in banknotes. Now, when the central bank wants to control money supply in order to control inflation, because when inflation is too high, it's not good for the economy, the central bank will want to reduce the money supply. The more of the currency that is outside of the banking system, the more difficult it is for the central bank to accomplish that objective. So that is why the central bank wants to limit the amount of currency outside of the banking system. Although I have to say that based on the available data, this doesn't seem to be an issue for us at all in Nigeria, because the percentage of cash in circulation to GDP is under 2%. And the percentage of cash in circulation outside of the banking system to the entire money that we are circulating, or as a percentage of money supply, is less than 6%. So you have control over 94%. Why are you so concerned about 6%? Especially when you compare this with the rest of the world, even more developed countries like the US, like Canada, like even the UK. And some emerging economies like India have a lot more in terms of currency in circulation and also outside of the banking system, far more in terms of percentage of GDP and per capita than Nigeria.
So that's why my point is, if you consider India and US, which are more industrialized than Nigeria and a very more robust formal economy than Nigeria, where the informal economy is so huge. So do you think the central bank governor in the US will get sleepless night because of the currency outside the banking system or in circulation than a central bank governor in Nigeria, for example? Why should Nigeria be different? Is it because of the developing economy while the others are much more developed?
No, I think that Nigeria should actually be celebrating. We should be celebrating ourselves. We are not projecting what is working for us. We have made a lot of progress with e-payments and financial inclusion over the past few years. In fact, as of 2022, the central bank report shows that 387 trillion naira worth of transactions were conducted under electronic payment system. That's a lot considering the size of our economy. So the likes of India, even after their demonetization in 2016, still end up today with about 12.9% of their GDP in currency in circulation, compared to Nigeria, where that ratio is under 2%. The US, even though the US currency is a global currency, if you take the amount of US currency in circulation divided by the world's population of 8 billion people, you get about $280 per person. In Nigeria, the currency in circulation is about $34 equivalent per person. In other words, America has more currency printed per person on earth than the naira per Nigerian. So it's not something we should worry about. I think the aspect we should be concerned with is that currency that is in the wrong hands, bandits, kidnappers, corrupt politicians. And to be able to control that, we don't need to create the kind of chaos we have created over the past few weeks with our naira redesign and naira scarcity, because those people who do evil with money they have, they don't have 10,000 naira, 20,000 naira, 100,000 naira. They have monies in hundreds of millions and billions of naira. So you could have created a threshold to protect the poor people, 20,000, 1,500. By the way, 98% of bank account holders in Nigeria have less than 500,000 naira, according to the NDIC. So you could have protected all these people so they can continue with their lives while you focus on the large volume of cash to be able to catch those dangerous and criminals, dangerous people and criminals who don't mean well for our country, and then punish them with appropriate consequences as contained in the law.
Okay, just a final note to sum it up tonight. It's a very deep conversation, but we're going to continue some other time. But again, let me just ask you about how much do you think we really need in terms of maybe new naira notes that you think should be sufficient for every Nigerian? You talk about an average of $34. Do we need about 100,000 naira per person or 50? Is that a threshold you're thinking of? What do you think should be appropriate in terms of that liquidity in the pockets of every Nigerian, in the hands of every Nigerian?
Yes, you know, before the currency redesign, we had about 16,000 naira per person, and we were fine. Nobody complained about not finding naira. Nobody was buying naira unless, you know, they did it out of, you know, their free will when they want to go to parties. So 16,000 naira was fine. I would have thought that the CBN should have started with something very close to that, maybe around 14,000, 15,000 naira per person. We should come to about close to 2.5 trillion equivalent. Now, moving from over 3 trillion naira, and you printed only 300 billion, for me, I think it was an invitation for chaos and confusion that was completely unnecessary. You could not overnight become entirely cashless. So the CBN, unfortunately, with what has happened now and the way this policy has been managed or mismanaged, it will mean that you need to now print more than you would have needed before, because everyone who has naira now is hoarding it. I can tell you that I have about 12,000 naira and I'm not spending it. I've had it for a few days. So for the next few weeks, few months, people will collect naira and they will not want to spend it. So the CBN needs to print more in the meantime.
Taiwo,
you trust back. Yes.
Yeah, I guess you've got about 12,000 for your 16,000 naira threshold. You need just 4,000 naira more, and that's nice. So that's okay. Then you'll be fine. I'm not going to disclose how much I have, but I'm close to that threshold, by the way, as well. Thank you very much, as always, for your deep insight. Taiwo Oyedele, fiscal policy partner and Africa tax leader at PwC Nigeria, going cashless in a developing economy. Have a pleasant evening.